Welcome to Burn the Ship. This is the podcast where we connect entrepreneurs or professionals that can help you go all in on your business. We talk to people that have walked the walk, talked the talk, been through all the things that we experience as small business owners, and come on the show willing to share those experiences with us so that we can run a more effective business. Thank you for coming, first of all. Anyone that shares their time with me, shares their time with the audience, and willing to come on the show and teach us something, it means a lot. So I wanted to say that first of all. I appreciate your time very much. But why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity and it's good to be here. And my name is Alex Stripe, and I'm the owner of Stripe Signature Home Inspections. I started the company in Denver, Colorado in 2015, and I personally relocated down to Costa Rica and opened up a location down here in 2021.
Nice. And so you were in Denver, right? 2015. What's kind of the background? How did you decide, hey, this whole home inspection thing might be for me?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, growing up, I never initially saw myself in the construction field at all. But my dad was a superintendent for a home builder, and got an opportunity to work for Allstate on their national catastrophe team. And so I traveled across the country there in the U.S. after big storms like hurricanes and things like that, assessing damage and writing estimates for repairs for the clients. And I really liked that job quite a bit, but it was pretty demanding. Lots of travel, man. I think I was home maybe 8 days a month. And I just relocated to Denver, and so I wanted to start to build my social network out there. And so I ended up taking a job that running a roofing company there. So I met the contractor actually while I was working for Allstate. He was looking to grow the business, so we kind of stayed in contact. He brought me on as VP of operations out there, and so I continue to just build relationships with real estate agents and insurance agents, and with all of that I noticed that a lot of the real estate agents started to trust me. They would send me their home inspection reports and say, hey, this guy's telling me we need a brand new roof. So I'd get out there and say, nah, you really only need, $500 repair. So in doing that, I realized there was a need for a better home inspector. I was tired of making somebody else money. So I looked into, what it would look like to open up my own company as a home inspector, enrolled in the ASHI school, which is the American Society of Home Inspectors, passed that class and enrolled with several of the top inspectors in Denver until I felt comfortable to really like kind of hone in the craft and start taking my own inspections.
Sure. So tell me, like, what is that barrier to entry in the home inspection world in Colorado? Because I know it's a little bit different everywhere. And is your particular state one of those ones that requires you to train with another licensed home inspector for a certain number of inspections before you can kind of go out on your own?
Yeah, so like you said, it's it is different from it's very state to state. Colorado is actually not a licensing state.
Oh,
And
cool.
so yeah, I did not have to, there was no barrier of entry really. I could have started without taking the schooling or doing ride-alongs. But of course, if I'm going to dive into something, I want to make sure that I'm doing it the right way. I just wouldn't feel right taking money from somebody if I didn't know what I was doing. So for me, I kind of joined a local chapter of what was called, I think, the National Society of Home Inspectors. It was NAHI, so I can't remember exactly what it stood for, but they have since gone under as a national board. But I stayed in contact with a lot of those guys and rode with them, and for the first 2 3 years probably I was sending photos to these guys when I was out in the field just with unique findings. And in home inspections you never stop learning, so even some of these guys who had been doing it for 20 years are like, oh man, I never seen that either. So we did some research together and find out what's going on.
Sure. And I talked to someone else recently in the home inspection space that actually became a client of ours that he basically told me like one of the arts of being in the home inspection space is being able to describe to someone what is potentially wrong or definitely wrong with a house in a way that doesn't kill the deal, right? And like the first thing that he gave me was like if a window screen is broken or if it's not there at all, it's like, okay, your window screen is broken versus your window screen is not installed, right? So, like, how do you find that balance between like educating the homeowner and exactly what type of investment they're making and also portraying it in a way that doesn't just scare off and kill deals so that you kill your relationships with the realtor that is putting you in that position to execute the home inspection?
It's a tricky line to walk, right? So sometimes, it takes a little while to find that balance too. And you're newer, you're really trying to point out everything, and sometimes it can be overwhelming, and just the way that you describe it. But if we look at it from a realistic expectation and say, hey, yeah, your window screen's missing, or you need to service your furnace. These are things that are just general maintenance items, caulking around the exterior, or kind of regrading some areas. These things aren't typically going to cost a lot of money, so it's easier to put that in perspective and just say, hey, this is what's going to make your house function a little bit better. And so it takes a little bit of maintenance, just like preventative maintenance on a car. You want to get your oil changed and things like that. So if you can kind of put those things in perspective for the client, they'll understand it versus making a big deal out of something that's really not a big deal. And I think that's where a lot of inspectors struggle early on, and a lot of them end up falling out of the industry because of that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you learn the technical side of it, and you really don't think about how exactly to portray what those things are that are happening inside a home because, more than likely, what makes you feel like you're doing a good job as a home inspector is pointing out some of that stuff. But what he was saying was more than likely the exact same things that I am reporting to you right now. If you go next door, you're going to find the same things, or if you go a neighborhood over, you're going to find the same stuff. He was like, if I have walked around, your house for 2 hours and I don't find termite damage, I'm second guessing myself of am I paying close enough attention, right? So like, I think it's one of those things that you have to know that um, no house is perfect, right? Like everything is a little bit of give and take, and maybe you have to know that there's some remediation that's going to happen in the future. Or you're going to have to budget a year or two from now to replace a deck or whatever that may be. But putting that into perspective for people that here is something that you need to be aware of, but it's something that is absolutely not abnormal. I think is a little bit of an art of your industry. Tell me a little bit about this move to Costa Rica.
Yeah, well, I mean, growing the business in Denver was exciting, right? It was, but it's very demanding. In our industry, and I'm sure the same as yours. Really, whenever you're providing a service, we're kind of expected to be on call 24/7. So if you're not getting back to a text message or a phone call within minutes, you lose that job or that client. And that was just, it's kind of hard to live life like that. You're just essentially living to work. And for me, I wanted more of a balance. My partner at the time and I had come down to Costa Rica for vacation a couple different times and just really kind of enjoyed the lifestyle. It was a slower pace of life. You know, it was just kind of a dream to chase and try to live abroad for a little while. And so, the pandemic happened and my business, I had just kind of brought on an inspector and got him trained up. So I was actually in a fairly good spot to where I could step out and run it remotely. Just kind of doing the admin stuff, answering the phone, processing payroll, just typical office stuff, and then review reports. And so that's kind of how we started. When I first moved down here, I wasn't anticipating opening the company, but enough people found out what I did in the States and kept saying, oh, there's a need for that down here. We really need qualified, good home inspectors. Uh, but the funny thing about that is now a lot of those guys are realtors and they won't use me now because we are pretty thorough in our reports. So while we're not scaring the clients, the standards of construction are a lot different down here. And so when the clients are made aware of some of these things, maybe they're not comfortable, or maybe the seller's not willing to negotiate. And so that property is just not right for that client at the time.
Sure. So what are some of the things geographically to look for in different areas? Like I'm in Atlanta, right? So I'm in the southeast. Moisture is usually one of the biggest issues for us is mold and remediating mold and things like that. It's probably one of the most common things that I hear about. Termite damage is also a big one, but like what do you see Pacific Northwest versus Southeast versus what do you see, down in somewhere like Costa Rica?
Yeah, well, that's a really tough question because I've done inspections personally. I grew up in Phoenix, and so I've have gone and ridden with a couple of the really good inspectors, well-known inspectors out there. I even brought my Denver inspector out to cross-train and learn some things there. And in Phoenix, it's a dry climate, so we're not really seeing a whole lot of moisture, but there are a lot of termites and stuff like that out there. And then, in Denver, it's also a dry climate, so not a whole lot of termites really out there. Maybe it's just a little too cold. But anywhere around the world, I think the big thing is grading and drainage away from the home. Even if it doesn't rain a whole lot, any sort of water that's going to sit against that foundation can create shifting and settling. Um, And then down here in Costa Rica, it's probably similar to what you see in Atlanta, maybe a little bit more extreme in terms of the moisture. But we have all kinds of pests down here with destroying insects like termites and things, a lot of moisture. So that, the grading and the drainage is super important down here. And then of course roofing issues, and that's anywhere across, where you're doing inspection. You want to make sure that that roof is watertight and, doing its job protecting and keeping water outside of the hole.
Sure. And what is kind of, from a business perspective, right? Like, what is that thing that you guys do particularly well that kind of separates you from the rest of the people that are in the home inspection space? Like, whether that may be protecting your relationships or being as thorough as you may be. Like, what is kind of that differentiator that you guys lean on to say, here's what's kind of different than the next guy that's in the same industry?
Yeah, so for me in Denver, what I really relied on was my social interaction. I got out and I met a ton of realtors, hosted monthly happy hours with a mortgage broker buddy of mine, was constantly going in and out of offices, teaching classes. And I think it's just my communication style with the clients. Like you said, knowing that balance of how to explain the findings without scaring them, but being very thorough so that they, are comfortable knowing, they're not going to move in and find a big surprise. Um, Now, in Costa Rica, kind of what's been a challenge is that it's not a well-regulated real estate industry down here. And so the realtors don't always have to have the client's best interest in mind, which, some they should, but more so they're caring more about the deal going through. And so I found it really hard to kind of partner with the realtors down here. I do have a few really good ones that refer us. Uh, but the trick down here that's made it successful is really online presence. So jumping on podcasts like yours, or doing webinars, or just beating up the Facebook pages with posts and Instagram and things like that have really kind of differentiated me uh, from the perspective of clients finding me. And then I'm one of the only ones that's North American trained down here that has all the tools, the technology, and the experience that North American expats are looking for when they're buying vacation homes or looking to move abroad.
Sure. What was the plan? Just curiosity for when you went to Costa Rica. You said you really didn't have home inspections on the forecast. Was it really just continue to, kind of use your time to satellite growth what was going on in Denver and put the tools in place for the people that were up there running the show, kind of rendering the service for you to make sure that, they have everything that they need to do an excellent job?
Yep. Yeah, exactly right. So when I came down here, the finances of the company were in a good spot. I knew that I didn't need to bring a whole lot more income, if any at all, down here. So it was just kind of like making sure, my team was in a good spot, making sure that I'm helping them, continuing to educate, build the business. And I kind of actually failed in that regards by not going back to Denver enough to maintain relationships. And we lost some agents there, and business. And then of course, the mortgage rates were really high, and inventory is at an all-time high. So the business in Denver is actually not doing as well as it could be at this point. So I'm glad that I started it down here, because now it's, helping me survive. But yeah, my initial plan was to just, make sure that my team had the necessary tools to be successful in it.
Sure. And do you find that that's kind of been your biggest obstacle, right? Is trying to, put your social touch on the business in Denver when you're away? Like, what are some of the obstacles that you've seen in your industry in general, and then kind of specific for your business as well?
Yeah, so I mean, real estate is very much personalized business, right? I mean, you need to get out and build connections, and you want to trust who you're working with. And without me being there, without me, doing the monthly happy hours or the lunch and learns, or, taking realtors to coffee and breakfast and things like that, there was a sharp decline in bringing in new agents, because in this industry, any top inspector is always going to be cycling through realtors, whether it's because the realtors leave or because they find somebody else, or whatever the reason might be. But without me being there to do that, that was a huge obstacle. And then, of course, keeping, as you kind of mentioned earlier in the show, some inspectors get called or labeled as deal killers. You know,
Yeah.
some of us inspectors like to say, hey, we didn't kill the deal. We just are basically writing the obituary. So we're just here to present the facts of the house, right? But there are some home inspectors who are alarmists, and so the way they present it can actually create a client to back out when maybe it's not warranted. But it's unfair for other inspectors to be labeled as that when we're simply just telling them that, hey, there's $25,000 worth of structural damage, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can't blame you for the death when you're just the coroner. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, it's a unique thing, I think, and I don't know from a consumer perspective what you would rather hear, right? Because if I hear, hey, everything's good, we checked it all out, you're all good, no moisture, no issues, no electrical issues, your roof's good. Like if you're getting all the green lights from someone, it's immediately going to make you think, how thorough was this inspection? And then the other thing, the other opposite end of that spectrum is true as well, where it's like, okay, this person is sounding the alarm on literally every single thing that's going on in this house. Is he, over embellishing the things that are going on in this property for whatever reason, or is he new to his industry? So like there, I feel like it's like you said at the beginning, it's always a tricky gray line in your industry to represent accurately what is going on with a home, but still set expectations that, hey, like you said, that this stuff can happen anywhere, right? That no house is perfect, and this stuff isn't atypical of what you're going to see with other surrounding properties. Do you find that the agents that are doing higher level listings, larger properties, higher dollar amounts, is their expectation of what they get out of a home inspection different than what someone that's selling $150,000 or $200,000 property is selling?
you know what? I think that it's agent specific. I don't know that it necessarily matters about the particular value of the home. I mean, of course, if they're used to selling $5 million homes or whatever, they want those sales because those commissions are a lot higher. And so
Sure.
some of them are still going to have really good ethics and morals, and want the most thorough home inspection for their client because they don't want that coming back to them, right? Who they refer is a reflection on them, right? So if they get an inspector that does a really good job, it makes them look better as well. But sometimes, those agents, because that commission check can be so high, they do become a little more picky about some of the items that we put in the report. We try to summarize the big ticket items in our reports from either a major cost concern or a health and safety concern, and we'll put those at the top of the report. And then everything else we tell our clients is more just like a maintenance and checklist. You can run down that. Our report probably average 50 pages. And so it's a lot, but it's just a lot of photos. So we tell the clients, hey, really pay attention to the first couple pages. And then everything else, of course, we want you to read and prioritize because everyone prioritizes different things. Um, but some agents get pretty mad about some of the stuff that we put on the top because they don't find it to be a big deal, or maybe it's a common issue, but it doesn't mean it's not expensive.
Yeah, for sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, how do people find you? If whether they're in the Denver area or they're in Costa Rica or they want to use you, or maybe they're a realtor that has questions about how they can build a relationship with you. Where do they go to find you out on the internet? How do they get in contact with you? All those things.
Yeah, so they can find me on my website, which is just www.stripeinspections.com. I'm all over Facebook, so they can find me, either Stripe Signature Home Inspections is the name of my company, so they can find that in Denver, or Stripe Signature CR is for Costa Rica. I have Instagram, but I got to be honest, man, I had a social media team that ran it, so I actually don't even really know how to do it. But
Hmm.
we do have the accounts. And then, yeah, they can always email me at Alex at Stripe Inspections, or reach out, and I can, I don't know if you will throw like a link at the bottom with
Yeah, we'll throw it in the description.
cool. So,
Yeah, for sure. No, yeah, I think your industry is really, really cool because, like you said, there's some balance to your industry. You're kind of working on both sides of people that are providing a service, walking through people, making their biggest investment of their life, and you're also kind of on the team of the homeowner. It's like I want to educate you about exactly what it is that you're buying, so you know what your forecast is going to look like. A month, a year, 2 years, 10 years from now, of what you're going to have to replace or remediate because these things happen in these areas and these homes. So I feel for you. You know what I mean? I hope you continue to make those relationships that are profitable for you. And I hope that people understand the value of those relationships to them because at least it sheds. At least you get to sleep a little better at night knowing that someone shed light on exactly what is going on, exactly what investment these people are making into these homes. So while I understand that it is a tricky line, I think that the remedy for those things, as it is in most businesses, and we've said it time and time again on the podcast, is communicate well, work really hard, and take care of your customers, and know that if you're doing the right things as far as in the terms of your industry or in the terms of doing what is right by people, that you're going to see some level of success as long as you don't let it be something dormant. You know what I mean? As long as you're continuing to apply the effort into that industry, you can find some way to be successful as long as you're doing right by the people that are buying from you. So I think your industry is exciting. I think it's going to continue to grow as well. Probably the average value of a home inspection is going to continue to increase as um, kind of what we're seeing in the real estate market right now, because people are having to go through that multiple times. A lot of times we're back into that world of submitting multiple bids, and sometimes bidding higher than what is listed price. So it's a unique thing, and real estate is going to continue to change. So I hope that the market is friendly to you, and if there's anything that myself and my network can do to make it easier for you, please let me know. And kind of the way that we always in the podcast here is really kind of an allusion to the name of the podcast, which is Burn the Ship, right? And I think every entrepreneur goes through this moment where they kind of flip this light switch, right? And they decide, I'm an entrepreneur now. I have to do the things that I need to do to make this business work for me and make it represent who I am as a person. So just talk to me a little bit about, what this whole entrepreneur journey has done for you, and why the people that are watching the podcast that are thinking about diving all in on their business should be okay with taking that chance.
Yeah, that's a great question because it changed my life when I decided to open my own company, right? It was a struggle for the first few years. Man, you're putting in a ton of hours, a ton of energy, a ton of money. But what it did is it allowed me to eventually open up and create my own schedule, right? So now I choose what jobs I do or don't want to take. I was able to relocate and find a balance of life to where I don't feel like I'm just living to work anymore. I can take a couple inspections a week down here and be financially okay, and just have the freedom to enjoy, to go to the beach if I want to go to the beach, go for a hike if I want to go for a hike. Doesn't mean that I'm not putting in long hours. I'm still doing it. I'm still answering the phone, doing the marketing, doing everything I can to bring my brand and my awareness in. But entrepreneurship allows you the opportunity to really take your life and do what you want to do with it. It's you obviously have to put the effort in, but it's worth the fight. And once you get there, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you're a wonderful example of that. Like the ability to kind of pick up your life and move it around based on the effort and time that you put into your business when you're in Denver is a wonderful anecdote for what entrepreneurship can do to you. So I reinforce that to the same people that are watching this podcast is if you work really hard and you take care of your customers and you begin this whole journey with a plan, you can really make what you want out of entrepreneurship. I'm not telling you it's going to be easy, and I'm not telling you that it's all cracked up to exactly what we're saying, because everyone's experience is very, very different. I can promise you that I have met with tons of people that tell me going into business for myself was a terrible decision because I wasn't able to do what I needed to do to make it successful because of where I was in my life. So, um, be reflective. If you have questions, please reach out to me. I'd love to be an asset to anyone that has questions about the entrepreneur world. I appreciate your time, Alex. If you have anything to leave the people with, please, by all means, this platform is for you to use it how you wish. But I appreciate the information that you've given to us, and I would encourage you guys that are listening to the podcast to burn the ship.
Yeah, absolutely. And the only thing I'll leave you with is, like you said, I mean, it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. It's not right for everybody. But if you're willing to put in the time, definitely do the entrepreneur and take care of your customers. That's really the only way you can make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate it, my friend. I look forward to continuing this relationship with you. I'm sure I can find some people that it's valuable for you to know in your network as well. But like I said, we're here for anyone to lean on, whether you're someone listening or a guest on the podcast or a past guest or whatever that may be. This platform here is really just to shine a light on what exactly that entrepreneur journey has been for different people in different phases of their business. But I appreciate you sharing your story with me. I look forward to providing some value to you guys in the future. We'll put this together. We'll make it look really, really good, and we'll get it over to you. But thanks for giving me some of your time. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Bailey. I appreciate it as well. And I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, burn the ship.